Assalamualaikum and very good morning. My name is Muhammad Azraki bin Muhammad Nizam. Today I want to do our lab 1, which is gyroscope. So for the experiment, objective is to compare theoretical and actual value of gyroscope couples. Okay. So the equipment we are using, which is for the first equipment is gyroscope, and second one stand data acquisition system. So I want to show you the procedure and how we use the gyroscope machine. Firstly, we need to set up the position direction velocity clockwise 30 radian per second. For rotor velocity radian, we need to set up to 250. From this, we need to take the value of the force and couple, and we write them in the lab sheet. Okay, for experiment 2, we need to set propagation velocity in radian per second decreasingly from 30 until 5. So the value of rotomotor we set up constantly, which is 250 radian per second. From the experiment, we need to collect the value of force and couple result. So we write down the value in our lab sheet and the major coupling. For predicted coupling, we need to apply using a formula on the lab sheet. So based on this experiment, we need to set up the prediction velocity from 30, 25, 20, 15, 10 and 5. That's it.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Bin Azizi, and I will continue this practical test with result, observation, discussion and conclusion. So as you can see, there is a 2 table for the result, because on this experiment we have, in this practical test, we have 2 experiments, which is the first experiment for the table 1, moment of inertia of gyroscope, precision constant, where we use precision and direction and velocity constant value, which is 30 rad per second, while for the table 2, which is second experiment, is the rotor constant, where we use rotor direction and velocity constant value, which is 250 rad per second, and this as the result for both experiment.
Alright, next I will continue with the observation, discussion, and lastly conclusion. So for the observation, while conducting the experiment, we observed that this machine had two controllers named rotor motor and precision motor. We may press and turn the controller for ease adjustment and press the hold to stop. The rotor motor will display speed, force, while the precision motor will only display speed. Beside them, there was a small controller where we can press and hold to make zero force. In addition, we observe that force will have this random value before or after the experiment started. Based on the result on the table 1, we observe that the measured couple magnitudes were decreasing as the rotor motor velocity decreased. There were small differences between predicted couple magnitude and measured couple magnitude, beside the force recorded for 250 rad per second until 50 rad per second decreased by 50 showed that they were decreased from 12 Newton, 9.89 Newton, 7.44 Newton, 5 Newton, and 2.56 Newton respectively. Based on the table 2, the measured couple magnitude also decreased when the precision velocity decreased. There were small differences between predicted couple magnitude and measured couple magnitude. The forces also decreased as the precision value decreased. The forces decreased from 12 Newton, 10.11 Newton, 8.22 Newton, 6 Newton, 4.11 Newton, and lastly 2.22 Newton respectively. From both table 1 and table 2, it was clearly that there were only small error percentage as difference between predicted magnitude and measured couple magnitude was small. Furthermore, we noticed that the gyroscope spun rather quickly. The rotating them has angular magnitude which must be preserved. This was due because every change in the axis of rotation causes a change in orientation, which alters the angular momentum. For the discussion, in this experiment, we had used gyroscope. We based on the result and the data we obtained, we recorded in two tables and plotted two graphs. The first table, we used fixed value of precision velocity and changed the value of rotor velocity, while for the second table, we used fixed value of rotor velocity and changed value of precision velocity. In this experiment, one of the error and systematic error. For example, for the first experiment table 1, we use fixed precision velocity and change the rotor velocity. When we keep changing the rotor velocity, the precision velocity also gonna change a bit its value which can affect the data needed. The same problem also can happen on the second experiment. So each time we change the value, we make sure the fixed value gonna stay value needed. So linearity is the property of mathematical relationship function that can be graphically represented to a straight line and is closely related to the proportionality. Linearity is also important for the confirmation of the method's sensitivity for the analysis concentration within a defined range. As per the method validations, linearity of a given response must be evaluated using at least a minimum of 5 concentration of analyte multi-point calibration, and data must be statistically analyzed. To summarize, linearity is one of the major aspects in the method validation procedure of using sign and quantitative impurity test. Is proceed to assess the range of concentration for which the method can reliably function. So for the lastly is conclusion. So as a conclusion, The experiment objective was successfully demonstrated. Based on the result of the experiment, we can conclude that when couple magnitude measured decrease as velocity decrease, same goes when the precision velocity decrease, the couple magnitude measured decreased. The value of precision and rotor direction were fixed at 30 rad per second and 250 rad per second respectively. In physical phenomena, the gyroscope theory is one of the most complicated and detailed in terms of analytical solution. The action of the internal torque applied and the change in the angular momentum of the spinning rotor are the main elements of the known theoretical questions. Many assumptions and refinements of the incomprehensible notions of the gyroscopic apparatus were used in the method the active torque of discovered in order to generate the sensitive reaction force on the support, showing that the new gyroscope features has been shown theoretically and technically and should be included in engineering computers. Practical testing also validated the theoretical thoughts for the gyroscope motion had from the flexible cord as well as the influence of the internally and externally torque. By minimizing the amount of errors in the experiment, any inaccuracy could be reduced. So that's all for the practical test for us. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.